The episode opens with a flashback to Walt and Jesse's first cook, a stark contrast to the brutal present. We see Jesse complaining about how long everything is taking and Walt growing frustrated with his protégé's disinterest in the process, their differing personalities and motivations now at a full boil. While they wait for the meth to cook, Walt steps away and calls Skyler. They have a pleasant conversation, discussing dinner and their upcoming plans, a nostalgic reminder of a time when his life was simpler and not completely consumed by his criminal enterprise. We gradually see the desert scene change as Walt, Jesse, and the RV are replaced by the brutal shootout scene, a clear reminder of how far he has fallen and what he has lost along the way. We see Hank has been hit in the leg and is out of ammo, his bravado now gone, the brutal reality of his situation finally hitting home. Gomez is dead, another victim of Walt's actions. Hank attempts to crawl to Gomez's weapon, but Jack stops him before he can get there. A futile attempt at gaining the upper hand, his body now failing him. They grab Hank's badge and see that Hank and Gomez are DEA and are no longer just a speed bump in their path. Jack is about to shoot Hank when Walt intervenes, saying that Hank is his brother-in-law, a desperate attempt to save the man he has ruined. Walt tries to argue that the rest of the DEA doesn't know anything, and they can work something out. Walt then tells Jack about the nearby $80 million in cash, offering it to him if he lets Hank go, his desperation now showing that he will do anything to take control of the situation. Hank, realizing his time is up, tells Jack to screw himself, pointing out to Walt that Jack's mind was made up 10 minutes earlier, a harsh reminder that Walt is not in control of what is about to happen, and that the world is far more dangerous than he ever realized. Jack shoots Hank, ending his life, and leaving Walt completely devastated, his plan of action, and his hope of being able to control his situation, now destroyed. Jack tells Walt he had a feeling something was up when he was given specific GPS coordinates, knowing that he was being manipulated. He has brought a shovel, his pragmatism now overriding Walt's desperate plan. Kenny digs up the barrels, and they put him in the truck. Jack then decides to give Walt one of the barrels, forcing him to shake hands and agree there are no hard feelings, another example of his need to control every aspect of the situation, and to exert his power over the man he now controls. Walt agrees, but says they still owe him Jesse. Jack is happy to kill Jesse, but nobody has seen him since the shooting began. Walt spots Jesse hiding under a car, and he is pulled out, his escape attempt failing, his freedom now under Walt's control. Jack points his gun at Jesse and asks for the go-ahead, knowing that Walt will never be able to forgive Jesse. Walt, with no hesitation, nods yes. Just as Jack pulls the trigger, Todd says it might be a good idea to torture Jesse back at their place and find out what he has told the feds before killing him. Another cool and manipulative choice that puts Jesse back under Walt's control. Jack agrees. As Jesse is dragged away, Walt makes a point to reveal that he watched Jane die and chose not to save her. His cruelty and need to hurt Jesse, now on full display. His actions a brutal and desperate attempt to try and regain some sense of control, even as the world is collapsing around him. Walt drives away with his barrel, but runs out of gas due to holes shot in the tank, another sign of his powerlessness over his own destiny. He starts rolling the barrel through the desert, completely defeated. He comes across an old man living on the reservation and pays him for his pickup truck, another transaction driven by his desperate need to survive. Marie stops by the car wash and tells Skyler they need to talk. The weight of their shared burden starting to collapse on them both, and the danger that they are both now facing is starting to be revealed. They go into the office, and Marie tells Skyler that Hank has Walt in custody and is processing him with Gomez. Marie says she and Hank will do what they can to help her because she is family, but there are conditions. Her desire to control the narrative, now clear, as she lays out what she expects from Skyler, their relationship now forever altered. She wants every copy of the video statement Walt made, and demands that Skyler tell Walter Jr. everything, their lies now collapsing, and the need for the truth finally taking center stage. We see Jesse in a holding cell, having been roughed up badly. Todd gets him out and brings him to the lab. He locks Jesse to a ceiling tether, another example of the control that has now been placed over him, and he is told they are going to cook. A picture of Andrea and Brock has been hung up, a cruel and constant reminder of the people he can no longer protect, a deliberate act of cruelty on Walt's part. Walter Jr. refuses to believe what he's been told by his mother and aunt, stating if it's true, then Skyler has been lying to him. The trust within the family now completely broken. He eventually storms out of the room. Another casualty of Walt's dangerous world and his lies, now having cost him everything. and his world is now falling apart. Walt arrives home and begins packing bags for him and the rest of his family, his desire to escape now his primary concern. While he's doing this, Skyler, Walter Jr., and Holly return home. Walt demands they pack quickly. His control over his family is all he has left. Skyler refuses until Walt tells her what happened, and what happened to Hank, her determination to finally know the truth, pushing her to finally stand up to Walt. She's convinced Walt killed Hank, and eventually, she grabs a kitchen knife, finally understanding that she is in mortal danger and needs to protect herself and her family from the monster that Walt has become. She demands Walt leave them. A scuffle ensues, another example of their toxic relationship and how it is now spiraled out of control. Walt is cut on his hand, and Walter Jr. picks up the phone, calling the police, his loyalty now shifting to the side of his mother and recognizing the danger that his father has brought to them. Jr. lies to the police, saying it was Walt who pulled the knife on Skyler, not the other way around, a final attempt to protect his mother from his monster father, and that they are now completely in the line of fire. Walt grabs Holly and gets into his truck. Skyler tries to stop him, but Walt speeds off, his family now completely lost to him. We see Walt change Holly's diaper in a public bathroom, his role as a parent, now a mockery of the true love that he once felt. Holly starts asking for her mother, and the full weight of what he has become begins to finally sink in, and he is faced with the reality of the monster that he has become is far worse than any cancer or any enemy he has ever faced. Skyler, Marie, and Walter Jr. are at home, surrounded by police, their family now completely torn apart. The phone rings. It's Walt, and an officer tells her to answer. Walt begins yelling at her for not falling in line, finally exposing the truth. His lies and deception that they had all believed so completely have finally crumbled. He takes responsibility for killing Hank, knowing the police are listening, and tries to make Skyler look like a victim. His desperate attempts at control are finally being revealed for the lies that they are. Eventually, Skyler catches on, and Walt says he has more things to do, and hangs up, his world now spiraling completely out of his grasp. His attempts to save his family from himself are finally showing him as the monster that everyone around him is now seeing him for. Walt leaves Holly inside a firehouse, turning on the light so she'll be found, his only act of redemption in the episode, finally recognizing that he is no longer worthy of being her father. We see Walt waiting by the side of the road, with his luggage and barrel now completely alone, his carefully constructed world finally falling apart. He's at the meeting place for Saul's guy who makes people disappear. The minivan arrives, Walt gets inside, and the vehicle drives away. Another step into his new and dangerous life.